All right. Hi, guys. I'm Karina.
And I'm Eric.
And welcome back to the Late Podcast. The law according to Eric. All right. So now we've spoken both on bankruptcy and civil law and all they entail. So we decided it would be nice to introduce a new idea to the podcast, which would be going into more details about famous bankruptcies that you might have heard in the news. So today we're going to be covering FTX.
So FTX, as many of you know, was a very large cryptocurrency exchange that I believe was founded in 2021. It was an offshoot of something called Alameda Research.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So it was founded by Sam Bankman-Fried in 2019 when it first began. And it stood for Future Exchange. That's what FTX stood for my research. And it was like a crypto exchange and a crypto hedge fund. So it was one of the world's largest cryptocurrency exchanges from what I've seen. And it had over 1 million users, which allowed users to connect to their wallets, place trades, exchange digital currencies, enter derivative contracts, buy, sell NFTs, and buy, sell, hold, and trade cryptocurrencies. According to what I read, it was available in the US, the Bahamas, Japan, Europe, and Switzerland, and also Hong Kong. And it provided spot markets in more than 300 cryptocurrency trading places, and it used BTC, USDT, ETH, XRP, and its native token, which was FTT.
So it's important for our 5 or 6 listeners to understand what cryptocurrency really is before we get into the collapse of FTX and the Chapter 11 file, everything that may come from that.
Right.
And honestly, while we've been gaining traction lately and really have been getting more and more listeners, there may very well be somebody out there who's lost money on FTX.
Right.
Towards the end, we'll tell you kind of what you can do or what your rights may be as a potential creditor. But having said all that, to start off with, what is cryptocurrency? Right? And so the name is much sexier than what it really is. Okay, cryptocurrency essentially are electronic tokens that are what we call mined based on certain algorithms and programs, and you can mine different types of cryptocurrency coins. To be honest, I don't know what it takes to create a new coin. It seems like everybody's got a coin coming out for something.
Right.
There's a law pay coin. There's a porno coin. There's, Elon Musk had that Dogecoin for a while that, I think did spectacularly bad. At one point, lots of people lost a lot of money on it. Then you've got a bunch of, Bitcoin Latinum, which has nothing to do with the actual Bitcoin, but it's just a fancy name using the word Bitcoin. That is endorsed by a famous poker player named Phil Hellmuth, who's gotten a ton of backlash over that. And then there's all these other small ones, XRP, or what they call Ripple. There's one called ADA Cardano, which is I think was created by some teachers somewhere. Ethereum or ETH, that's the other that's kind of the second big one, right? So in practical terms, think of it like this. Bitcoin is like gold bars. Ethereum is like silver, right? As far as value, right? They're both valuable. Bitcoin's much more valuable, per coin than Ethereum. All these other ones, they're like the nickels and dimes in your pocket. Right. Yeah. And there's thousands of them at this point. I mean, I don't know if there are thousands. There's hundreds and hundreds of.
No, it definitely is. Yeah.
Yeah. There's all these variants of coin. Okay, and I don't want to give anybody any bright ideas, but there are now you can literally buy the computers that mine different coins.
Yes.
You just have to keep them running 24/7. So if you can afford the electric bill, right, you can, in theory, anybody can mine their own crypto.
So before we get into the rest of this, there was a question on that actually that I wanted to ask.
Oh. Okay.
So mining that and starting your own, basically, they were asking, how would taxes work for that? Would he make himself the only employee? Would he be able to use his utilities as a business bill? That was one of the questions I saw, so I'm glad you brought that up.
Well, I'm not surprised at that question. I don't know the legal structure to create a company that mines crypto for your own use. I would say at this point, and we can maybe address it more in the what would I do section, once we get to that. But I don't know how smart it is to create a company and list yourself as a sole employer beneficiary for the purposes of mining crypto.
Yeah.
That may raise some red flags with regulators at this point. I don't know. I think that full disclosure, I had some crypto for a while. I did some trades. I think I lost around $2,000, which is all the money I put into crypto. I was just kind of playing around with it. I was quickly disenfranchised by it and chose to not mess with it anymore. At the end of the day, these are just digital ones and zeros.
Yeah.
Right? Cryptocurrency is not backed by any formal government, any type of hard asset.
Mm-hmm.
And as we go further into today's episode, which is, we're going to call this our bonus Veterans Day.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to put this out a little bit early for everybody and so on. But I would say that this is really important because I don't know that FTX would have collapsed the way it did if crypto were backed by any kind of real asset or government currency, or if it were at all regulated or more regulated than it has been or currently is. People really did lose their fortunes, their life savings. Was it smart for people to convert everything they owned into crypto? Probably not. Unfortunately, we live in a world where marketing trends and like what's the latest and greatest of whatever comes out, and people jump on it and go crazy for it, and nobody wants to feel like they're missing out on something.
Right.
Or they don't want to miss the boat. I think that's part of what happened with FTX and the crypto world to begin with. I mean, Bitcoin is still being traded on Binance or whatever, like
Coinbase.
Coinbase is the other main one. And you can still buy and sell different coins or fractional coins and things like that. Again, my personal advice is I would just kind of stay away from it, or maybe if it's going to be like a fun hobby, but I wouldn't put a whole lot of stock and money into it.
Like you said, I feel like it's like the FOMO people have to like not be included or to like actually be scared of missing out of all of that. But it's not the smartest idea. I feel like, especially with how everything's planned out with some of these, you can't really trust it exactly to its point.
This is not too different than sort of the nationwide behavior we experienced not long after 9/11. There was a huge surge in home prices because interest rates were put down to zero, basically. And you could get mortgage loans. I mean, these like what they call teaser loans for like 1%. And people went on a frenzy to buy a house because all of a sudden people that couldn't afford it could now, because they could qualify for bigger loans because the interest rates were so low. And that created a sort of an artificial value to property. Now, the main difference is between crypto and houses that you can actually touch a house.
Yeah.
And you can own it. You can improve it. You can sell it again. You can add value to it later. You can domicile your family, right? Crypto, you can't do any of that, right? It's on paper, not even real paper. It's like on your screen. Yeah. Right. And you can kind of look at it.
You just have to have hope that it's
right. And
there.
Right. I also think it's kind of too new to have like crypto experts as far as trading.
Yeah.
But I don't want to detract too much from FTX.
All right. So let me tell you the downfall then. All right. So the downfall began in November of last year, and it was caused by the crisis that exposed that an $8 billion hole was in FTX's account. So starting from the beginning, on November 2nd, CoinDesk, which is a digital media company that specializes in crypto asset community, put out an article that reported that the Alameda Research, which was also co-founded by Sam Bankman-Fried, had held a significant amount of FTT, which made up a considerable portion of their assets. CoinDesk also reported that there was $5.1 billion worth of FTT tokens, and that Alameda's balance sheet held up to $3.66 billion of unlocked FTT, along with $2.16 billion of FTT collateral and $292 million of the locked FTT. The article, which of course triggered a spike in withdrawals from all the FTX, and eventually the customers became unable to even retrieve their money from that they had in the exchange. And after that, November 9th, the website said that it was no longer processing withdrawals at the time. And on that day, actually, Bankman-Fried actually stated that FTX.US was a separate company and it was not currently impacted by the crisis. I think he was just trying to save face for that. But then later on November 10th, he retracted that statement. He was taking responsibility for FTX's failures and indicated that FTX was still trying to raise up to $10 billion in emergency financing to remain solvent. By this day, all of their in-house legal and compliance teams had already resigned. And also on that day, the Securities Commission of the Bahamas froze the assets of one of the FTX's subsidiaries, the FTX Digital Markets Ltd, and all related parties. And then on November 11th, the Alameda Research and over 100 affiliated entities of FTX filed for bankruptcy. That same day, he also resigned as the CEO. And as of November 12th, between $1 and $2 billion in customer funds were not accounted for at all.
There's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
Here. So first off, let me just say, and this probably shouldn't be a shock to anyone, but when your compliance and legal team resign,
yeah,
that's a pretty big red flag that you're in trouble. It's hard to know. I mean, of course, we're recording this early on Thursday, November 9th. Mm-hmm. Tomorrow is Veterans Day. Mm-hmm. Normally we record Fridays and we release on midnight or first thing Wednesday morning. Mm-hmm. Or whatever, but we're gonna give our 5 listeners a little bit of an early Veterans Day treat. Mm-hmm. Okay. When your legal team quits, your compliance team quits, it's probably not just because the ship is sinking. It's probably because they realize that there are things that were hidden from them, or they are now exposed to the actions or mistakes or omissions or inactions of the upper management or those in control. And number one, they don't want to be blamed, which I understand as an attorney. I have clients that do stupid things all the time, against my better advice. And there's no more upsetting feeling than a client coming back in acting as if you didn't warn him not to do something when you did. Then he does it and it blows up in their face, and then all of a sudden they want you to fix it or want to know why you let them do that. Right. I don't know. I mean, I will share that I have some direct involvement with FTX. I'll explain to the audience when we get a little bit further, but I did some consulting for some Chinese claimants, specifically because they were sort of an underrepresented group of people that had money tied up in the exchange. We were in contention, our firm, along with 2 partner firms, to be the official counsel for the Committee of Unsecured Creditors, the official Committee of Unsecured Creditors of FTX. It ended up going to a much larger firm, so that even our 3 firms combined probably couldn't handle, the size of the workload. This is a multi-million-dollar legal fee case for the firms. Of course. I mean, tens and tens of millions, not on the lower end. This is a 8 to 9 figure case for sure. Where did all the money go? That's going to be uncovered ultimately by the courts and the bankruptcy trustees. As you may have already heard, as of the recording of today's episode, Samuel Bankman-Fried has been convicted of 7 counts, I believe, of different levels of fraud, wire fraud, conspiracy, and so on. Those that were highest up in his organization sort of turned against him and testified against him. He made the mistake of taking the stand himself. Even the most innocent of defendants should probably not take the stand and testify, opening themselves up to cross-examination, because, again, even if you're innocent, there are ways to construe facts. There are ways to turn things around. Sometimes you say something, and depending on the tone or how it's read, can be misconstrued. And so it's just never a good idea. Remember, in a criminal case, the burden of proof lies within the prosecution's scope. It is up to the prosecutor to convince the jury beyond a reasonable doubt that you are guilty of what you've been charged with. It is not the defendant's job to cry innocence and somehow convince the world he didn't do it. Although I know they sound similar, it's the prosecutor's job to convince the jury that the defendant did do it.
Right.
That's the core. And it has to be what's called beyond a reasonable doubt. It's hard to kind of explain what that really means. There are some anecdotes, like more than just a possibility, more than just 50-50, but not necessarily 100%. What does reasonable mean? Because there are people that can come up with a million different potential reasons something didn't happen, but they're so far-fetched, right, that it's not really reasonable. So the better way to explain it is like the lottery, right? So you start with the premise that anything is possible, right? Anything is possible. And then you have to ask yourself, what's more likely, right? Is it more likely I'm going to buy the winning lottery ticket, or is it more likely I'm not going to, right? Beyond a reasonable doubt, isn't that tiny scintilla of a chance that you're going to win the lottery. It's really only if I buy a ticket and I play it and I do it right and I pick all these numbers, I have this chance, right? So the tiniest little shred doesn't mean you have to vote not guilty. It has to be reasonable, right? So expecting to win the lottery by buying a single lottery ticket is not reasonable, right? Yes, it's possible, right? It could happen.
Highly unlikely.
Right. But it's not reasonable. And in fact, it's much more unlikely. So in that context, reasonable doubt really has to be, the doubt has to be reasonable. My understanding is the jury deliberated for only 4 hours and came back with guilty verdicts on all counts. That tells me that they made their minds up long before he even took the stand. And then his taking the stand probably didn't help.
And then his other people saying it was his fault. Well, they actually had said that it was him who directed them to actually commit the fraud. I think that didn't help at all either.
Probably not. And prosecutors don't typically bring a case when there are a lot of holes in it. I understand that there was a lot of public outcry to do something about FTX and, the massive collapse that it represents as far as the financial world and people's livelihoods and futures and all that. But nonetheless, that, prosecutors usually build a pretty solid case. The fact that they interviewed so many other witnesses, people that were in the higher up positions, management positions in FTX, and that gave pretty damning testimony about Bankman-Fried's direct involvement, I think sealed his fate either way. So all testifying would have done was open himself up for more problems,
of course,
to be honest. But, okay, you see that sometimes these narcissistic people, they want to get up, they believe they can just convince the world of anything, and all they need is a chance, and that kind of thing, right? I hate to admit it, but we've had our share of pretty, sketchy clients that I don't think were the innocent victims they pretended to be. And I used to get that same routine. Eric, we just want our day in court. We just want a chance to show the world that we did nothing wrong. And okay. And then I sit and I smile and I give them the sympathetic ear, but inside it's come on, guys, do I have to point out all these inconsistencies? How about we just mount the best defense possible? Right. That's what I would have done, right, if I were his attorney. But what can I tell you?
Well, I feel in that point, people get to such a point that they believe they actually have done nothing wrong and they're in the clear. And I feel maybe he kind of believed that as well at that point, where he was maybe I've gotten this far. It was $8 million that, there was a missing $8 million. Maybe he thought he'd get away with it.
It's possible. I'll tell you what this trial did tell me is that money doesn't always buy, acquittals. Everybody felt that way for a long time. And especially, for example, after the O.J. Simpson trial, I think 90% of the world was convinced he did it. The evidence, I personally have seen weaker evidence convict people than what they had on O.J. But O.J. had a very brilliant, very expensive legal team. And the sentiment coming out of that was, well, if you can afford it, you can get off, right? You can be acquitted. And Samuel Bankman-Fried could certainly have afforded very, very high-end legal help. And that just didn't help this time. Right? So at least the jury or the jury pool was willing to, look past the glitz and glamour of high-priced lawyers and, look at the facts and make the determination. By the way, I have no doubt that this will be appealed.
Right.
But he'll sit in jail during the appeal and he'll be serving time. He's facing 100 years. I think whatever he gets will probably be a life sentence for him.
Of course.
I think he'll probably get closer to 70.
Yeah.
Between 40 and 70. But I think at that point, because he's in his 30s, that's
the end, probably.
If he gets 45 or 50 years, and he's already in his mid-30s or however old he is, now he's in his 80s before he's eligible for parole, I think it's pretty much over.
Yeah.
I know we're going a little bit off topic, but one interesting thing, and I do think it's important that listeners understand this, is just because this is what's known as a white-collar crime, like financial fraud, doesn't mean he's going to get sent to what's called Club Fed.
Right.
Which is very easy, minimal time. The way it works is there are 3 or so factors that are taken into account to determine where you're going to go. Number 1 is the type of crime you committed. Number 2 is whether or not you have certain conditions that need care. So, for example, if you are a diabetic or have some kind of chronic illness, you need to go to a facility that may have certain medical capabilities. They're going to look at if you have criminal conviction history. So if this is your first offense, if you've had multiple offenses, again, whether it was violent, but they're also going to look at the scope of the crime and the victims and the victimology.
Right.
You're talking about hundreds of thousands of people that lost everything. Now, there may be some recovery, and this is where we can segue into the Chapter 11, right? But keep that in mind. There's no guarantee that he's going to go to some minimum security camp, off Catalina Island here. He may end up in a fairly difficult federal prison.
Yeah.
He may not be on the violent offender tier, right? But he may not get easy time. Just putting that out there. And then a lot of people think like, oh, he'll just be on a 50-year vacation. No, it's not going to be like that.
So for this, since he's already convicted, he'll, sit in jail for this. What happens with the bankruptcy? Will the people get back their money? What does that look like for them?
So there is a court-appointed bankruptcy trustee. There was a new board of directors of FTX that essentially agreed to put FTX into Chapter 11. Chapter 11, if the listeners may recall, is a business reorganization. There is a chance investors will get some money back. They will not get all of it.
Yeah.
That money has to be found, has to be accounted for, it has to be, determined who it belonged to. There will be what are called administrative expenses, which is basically all of the legal and accounting professionals that are employed by the bankruptcy court or the bankruptcy estate in this case. So now you have the Committee of Unsecured Creditors, their counsel. You have the debtor, which is FTX, right? They are the debtor. You have their counsel. You have fees that are paid to the Office of the United States Trustee. You have forensic accountants, crypto exchange experts, software engineers. All of these people get paid first because they have what are called priority administrative claims.
Right.
You also have something in bankruptcy, which is called a super priority claim, which actually puts you ahead of even the professionals. And those are reserved for special, lenders that come in and provide emergency or otherwise needed funding into a Chapter 11 business in order to keep it afloat while we get to the point of planned confirmation or distributions and things like that. There's no doubt that we're going to be in the hundreds of millions of dollars in professional fees over the course of this. Chapter 11 cases can take 3, 4, 5 years to get to confirmation, depending on the complexity. Eventually, there will be some recovery of what are called fraudulent transfers, money that went to people that it shouldn't have. It takes a long time. The trustees have to pool it all together. Then they start making disbursements after they get paid. Now, what's important is that every professional in a Chapter 11 case has to apply to have their fees approved by the bankruptcy court. So you file a fee application, basically asking the court to scrutinize your time and the work you did and how much you're billing at the hourly rate to make sure you're not doing repetitive work, to make sure you're not billing for work that could be done by paraprofessionals or administrative staff. Things like that you're not lumping work together, that, everything's being segregated on different line items, that you're billing by the 10th of the hour, not lumping into half-hour segments, so on. There's all these guidelines for professional billing in Chapter 11. Then the court, the judge, has to review it and determine if it's reasonable. Right? And the standard is actually pretty simple, but it creates all sorts of controversies. And that the standard is simply that the work done was necessary to benefit the bankruptcy estate, right? I have done a ton of work in Chapter 11s that were necessary because I was forced into a situation where I had to respond to something. But there's no benefit necessarily because if we didn't win, right, or it was just a waste of time because some creditor was more aggressive than they needed to be. But the judges will scrutinize that, right? So a very standard example is a creditor will file a motion in a Chapter 11 case saying, I want permission to go after this guy personally. I want the automatic stay not to apply to me. This guy stole from me or he ripped us off and we want our money back. And a lot of times it's fueled by emotion and, maybe short on facts. And the bankruptcy court has to decide whether they will allow somebody to pursue a bankruptcy debtor outside of bankruptcy court. The bankruptcy attorney for the debtor has to respond to that motion and oppose it. Otherwise, it can be granted automatically. So we have to oppose. So it's necessary in that sense, right, that we file these oppositions and we fight about it. Does it benefit the bankruptcy state? Not really. Because either they're going to do the action in the bankruptcy or they're going to do it outside of the bankruptcy. If they do it in the bankruptcy, it's called an adversary proceeding. If they do it outside of the bankruptcy, it's a trial for fraud or what have you. But it's the same end result. So judges will look at that and understand that while it may not have benefited the estate, it was necessary for me to advance these arguments, right? So they have some flexibility. But I've routinely seen attorneys' fees reduced 20, 30% by bankruptcy courts because they're saying it's just sort of unnecessary. They built a little too much. They did repetitive work, so on. I've also seen judges award the full amount of the fees, but then only allow a portion to be paid at that time.
Okay.
That's called an interim fee application, right? In the interim. So I can apply for fees, what's called on an interim basis. I say, Judge, every 4 months, at least here in the Central District, California, I can apply for my fees every 120 days. Say, court, every 4 months, I'm going to file a professional fee statement in an application to be paid fees on an interim basis. And as an easy example, a lot of judges sort of adopt an 80-20 rule where they say, okay, let's say I have got $10,000 in my trust account as a retainer for this. They will let me draw $8,000 of it, and I'll have to keep $2,000 in reserve. And then going forward, other judges will allow you to do that until unless it would negatively impact the bankruptcy estate, right? In other words, they don't want any money available for creditor to be drained by the attorneys and then have nothing left at the end anyway. That renders the estate insolvent. While we're here, might as well just Chapter 7 and close it down. Right. So there's a lot of restrictions. Yeah. What's important to know is this. Delaware is where the FTX bankruptcy case is filed. Yes. Delaware is known as the bankruptcy court capital of the world. Not the United States, the world. Everybody goes to Delaware with these big cases. Delaware bankruptcy courts are extremely streamlined. They are very technically savvy. They have some of the smartest sitting judges in the country because Delaware is a haven for bankruptcy filing, mostly because it is one of the most corporate-friendly states. Yeah. Wyoming is a close second, believe it or not. Oh, really? Yes. Wyoming is very business-friendly when it comes to creating LLCs or corporations as far as anonymity and all that kind of stuff. Delaware has long been the corporation's capital of the country. They have one of the most active and robust bankruptcy courts in the entire country. So it's no surprise that that's where the FTX case is filed. Again, you can't just pick Delaware for no reason. You can't just decide. Right. Mostly it's because you incorporate Delaware. In Delaware, yeah. Right. And in the beginning of the case, there was some infighting between the Bahamas courts and the U.S. court because the Bahamas took the position like FTX was there. Yeah. Right? Because that's where Bankman was based. And his apartment there. And I guess they had some servers there. But no, the U.S. took over. It's being dealt with here. Having said all that, there are ways, I think the deadline might have passed, but you can try to get some kind of exception. You can file what's called a proof of claim online or through a website where you basically say, here's my FTX login, here was my screenshot, here's how much I had, here's how much I'm owed, and that claim will be filed away, and then you will get regular email communications and updates about pending distributions. One other thing, we don't have a super ton of time today, but there's something really important about this that I think is important to bring up. Number one, with any large financial disaster comes the con artists and scammers. I've already personally seen a bunch of fake emails that have been sent to my email address because I had some consulting involvement with FTX and we filed claims on behalf of China claimants. I've already gotten these fake emails saying funds are available, log in now, and all they're doing is stealing usernames and passwords. Get the official notices from the bankruptcy court, rely on those. Yeah. Two, there are, I don't want to say necessarily unscrupulous organizations because some are probably very, honorable and some are not. But it is not uncommon for companies to go around and offer to purchase your claim so that they'll get paid, when the claim's dispersed. And so what they'll do is they do a very detailed sort of analysis. They look at how much is being collected by the estate. They anticipate how much the professional fees are going to be, what might be available to disperse to all these claimants, these unsecured claimants. Remember, we talked the difference about secured debt and unsecured debt. So people that are owed money by FTX that are not like UCC lenders or merchant advances, like just regular everyday people, their debts are unsecured.
Right.
Okay. So I'll turn around and say, okay, you're owed $100,000 by FTX. You're an unsecured creditor. I'll buy your claim today for $5,000. Right. Saying you may not even get 5 cents on the dollar. I'll give that to you now and I'll take the risk. And I've already done my analysis and realized that it's likely to pay 26 cents on the dollar or something like that. Right. So I'll get 26,000 back for the 5,000 I give you, but you'll get money today and you don't have to wait the 2 years or whatever it's going to take. Be careful of those types of offers. When somebody is offering to buy your claim today, right now, in a bankruptcy case as big as FTX, trust me, they're not doing it to be charitable to you. They're doing it because they believe that they are going to make 50, 60, 70% on that investment ultimately when the monies are dispersed. If you are in desperate need, if that's all the money you had, if you're a young student, okay, make the decision that's best for you. Yeah. If you're not counting the days, and you don't need the money tomorrow, I would hold on to your claims and do not sell them off to these claim buyers. They're only looking to enrich themselves. They're not. And
I feel like they pry on people like that need it.
They pry on people, and they're not there to advocate for you. They're going to basically take ownership of your claim. You're going to assign it to them, and then they're going to kick back and wait to get paid a bigger amount than what they gave. So, again, if you can hold off, be wary. Right. All right. We took a ton of time today, but I know that there's the What Would Eric Do?
Yes.
Let's just do a couple because I feel bad.
Okay. Let's do. Okay, I'll start with this one. A crypto scam in Chicago. So they wanted to mention it's a throwaway account. And for everyone who doesn't know that, they just make like a fake account. They put their story. They don't want to be recognized for who they are. Okay. So they just wanted to know what they can do or if there's anything he can do. Long story short, my professor sent me a job posting knowing I was looking for some extra cash to hold me over till I found a more permanent job. I applied and got hired. Quote unquote. Fake employer claimed to be a professor teaching about finances and crypto. He asked me to use his money to buy some crypto and send him the receipts for a presentation that he's making. He sends me checks that I cash in and complete the task via ATM. I send something fishy and I call the school that the check supposedly came from. It turns out the guy stole their bank info and tricked me into giving him the funds through crypto. I called my bank, I called the ATM, I called the school, and was in contact with the detective that was working the case for the school whose bank info got stolen. Bank said it was my fault that I got scammed and they won't help me. The ATM company said they can't reverse the transaction either. I ended up paying for the stolen funds with my own money. The cops won't reply to my emails or my calls, and no one's telling me what's going on with the case or even if it's even closed or mine to begin with. It's been 2 weeks now, going on 3. In hindsight, everything is so clear. I trusted the email job posting because it came from my professor who I trusted. I don't know if there's even a chance of getting my savings back.
All right. So what would Eric do? Eric would mourn the loss of his money. Yeah. And chalk it up to a terrible experience. Hopefully it wasn't an insurmountable amount that he can't ultimately make back or recover. At some point, the likelihood of his getting the money back is, I think, almost zero. Right. These crypto scammers, while there certainly are fair share in the U.S., often they're based overseas. Right. Russia and Maldives or some of these other countries where hackers and scammers are not sought after as hard as they are here. And so chances are the money's gone. Yeah. I'm sorry. And it's tough because a trusted source forwarded you a job posting. That, by the way, not that this is going to make this guy feel any better, but that's not a new scam. Buy the equipment for me and I'll reimburse you, or send me the receipts and I'll pay you back, or whatever. They just put a twist on it using crypto and crypto transactions. Crypto can be transacted in seconds. Yeah. That's the other thing too. And unless you are with a very stable and well-known wallet that may hold the availability of outgoing withdrawals or transfers and confirm the other wallet address information, you may just be stuck. All right, next one. Can I do anything about an accidental crypto transfer? No. Hi all, I'm in a bit of a pickle. My company, which is based in the US, was working with a contractor in Europe, and we've been occasionally paying him in USDC. One day we accidentally transferred him a significant amount, it was less than 30K, to his wallet, and it seems like him returning the coins is not really on the table. What are my options here? We do have a contract, but it says nothing about the wallet and means of payment. Are there any legal paths to take to get the funds back? I don't know. That's a hard one, because if they have an obligation to pay for services based on their contract, and they chose to pay it this way, I don't know that it would be any different than if I went to pay an invoice for a contract attorney for $2,000 and accidentally typed in 20. Oh darn! My bank's not going to help me. That was my mistake. Yeah. I entered the information. I inputted it. I clicked send. I said yes. I confirmed. You have to hope that the person on the other end is honorable.
Well, he said it doesn't look like they're going to give it back.
It's difficult because, and the other question is, what's the balance left on his contract?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you could just say, okay, look, I'm just going to call this as me paying you early, and I need you to conclude the services.
Right.
Or what have you. You could, in theory, send a notice of what's called anticipatory breach by saying, look, we sent you 30,000 USDC on this date. It was clearly an error. Your last invoice only reflected 3,000. You know you weren't owed this much. You've chosen to ignore our request for the money back. Therefore, we're going to terminate your services, and then they can sue them.
Right.
And that's what I would probably do. I would sue for unjust enrichment. You know, just because the person makes a mistake doesn't mean the other guy can be unjustly enriched as a result of that mistake. Right. Especially if they had been paying this way more than once and they always sort of accepted it. Right. So that's another issue too.
Okay. So for the last one, since I know it's getting pretty long, I'll let you pick. I'll give you the titles and you pick which one.
Okay.
The first one's title is The IRS is saying I owe $4,000 in taxes from trading crypto on Robinhood. Sad face. And the second story is Crypto Scam. My mom lost $57,000.
Okay, well, I'm going to pick the second only because you sad face all you want. The IRS always gets their money. Okay. So just pay it. Pay the IRS and move on. The last thing you want to do, user 1279 or whatever you call it, is make an enemy of the IRS. Okay? Yeah. Don't tell the IRS to fuck off ever. Even if you think you don't owe it, literally, I'm telling you, pay it and then argue it later. Yeah. All right, so let's talk about poor old mom. Losing $57,000.
Okay, so they live in Murrieta, California, and recently their mother informed her that she was scammed out of $57,000 on a cryptocurrency app.
This was Nigerian Prince?
Not saying. Okay, all right, so this one they'll refer to as App A. About 9 months ago, someone online offered to help her make money by investing on her behalf. They instructed her on what to buy and when, and convinced her to invest $7,000 in digital currency on App A. Later, they advised her to transfer the funds to a different app, App B, where she started earning money through investments as per their instructions. Subsequently, they convinced her to put in the additional $50,000 into App A for this digital currency, which was later transferred to App B. Following their guidance, she earned $56,000, accumulating a total of $114,000 on her App B account. She attempted to withdraw the funds, but was told the person online that she needed to put $36,000 in App B for tax purposes, which she refused to. She tried to withdraw the funds to her bank account, but was unable to do so. The money appeared to have gone to a different section of the app and couldn't be invested or withdrawn. She left the matter alone for the past 9 months, but recently discovered that her money has now disappeared. I would like to know if there's a possibility of recovering the funds, at least the initial investment of $57,000, or whether it would be impossible to trace.
Well, chances are no. I mean, We represented a plaintiff that had kind of something similar happen. The amounts were much larger, and I can't give names. There was a confidential settlement reached at the end of the litigation. But it took about a year and a half of heavy litigating to finally get to where we were able to settle. And that's after we had to send, I think, 15 or 16 third-party subpoenas, and we really uncovered a lot of what was going on with a lot of people's money. Yeah. And I think in the end, they settled with us because the publicity was starting to accumulate. And I'm telling you that the confidentiality was a huge part of this whole settlement. So having said that, I would take legal action against both the person that reached out, the app creators. You'd have to find a law firm that's willing to take that on for what would be maybe, well, you could sue for the entire value of the portfolio at the time or its highest amount. And you could sue for fraud, you could ask for punitive damages and so on. At the end of the day, it's a low $100,000 kind of case. Yeah. A lot of law firms won't take a contingency case that low. And I'm not saying this like to be a jerk. The reality is that if it takes a year and a half to 2 years of time and effort, chances are the law firm will use more than 33% of $100,000 for $33,000 worth of resources and time. And, you know, And so they would be at a net loss, which is why a lot of really good, larger and reputable law firms stay away from smaller contingency cases. And I know 100,000 is not that small, but it is to a big firm.
Yes.
I know it's huge to the individual. And that's also why we took on the case we did, although it was for more than that. But nonetheless, it was really because the plaintiff and the victim, our client, really lost his life savings.
Yes.
And had worked years to accumulate it. And so part of it was we felt bad. Now, I have a smaller firm. I'm the only attorney on staff, and I've got a support staff of 5. So I make the decisions, what cases we take, and I don't pawn it off on another associate or a partner and make them spend the time. So at the very least, I know the risk I'm taking, right? And I choose if I want to do it. But bigger firms have committees, right, where they look at a new case, and the partners have to decide, do we want this case or not? And if we do, under what circumstances, what kind of fee structure, that kind of thing. So you have to look for a firm willing to take that on, right? But chances are your mom wasn't the only one that this company got. So a lot might come to pass. I would start, I hate to say it like this, but I would start maybe posting on other forums, not just Reddit, but looking for them, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, Reddit, all of the social media you can think of, Facebook, anybody
look up that name of that crypto.
And ask, has anybody else been scammed, right? Is there anybody else out there that's had this experience? There is strength in numbers, right? Rip-Off Report, there's a bunch of these websites where you can see what happened to people. There are strength in numbers. And you may be able to put together, maybe we get a class action going, right? Which may make it worthwhile for a larger firm to take that on a contingency. This person's in California. I would for sure have them email the firm, and maybe there's a way to gain some more ground on it.
I was trying to see if she mentioned what crypto was, but there's no mention in the comments.
It doesn't matter. It's really all about these ideas that we show you some, and this is a scam that's been going on, since the dawn of Christ. Right? So the whole idea of we're going to tease you, we're going to give you a little bit of a taste, we're going to get you all excited, and now you think you're going to become a trillionaire, and you're going to dump up all your money to us, and then we're going to take off. Tale as old as time. Yep. So unfortunately now with crypto, it's just more advanced, it's more technical.
Yeah, the pump and dumps that they call them.
Kind of, same idea. Put money into our app, we're going to trade for you, we're going to do this. Okay, here's 10,000, great. 3 weeks later, your 10,000 is now worth 30. Oh my God. Okay, I want to cash out. Well, you can. Takes 30 days, but tell you what, don't cash out. We'll give you the next exclusive. You're now at tier 2, right? And now tier 2, you get more benefits. But our minimum is here's 100,000. But we'll credit you the 30, right? So just put in 70 more, and that's how they get you. And you think it's real. You see your screens. You see your money on screen. You think it's all there. You'll never get it out. So you have to go after these companies. You have to hold them accountable. You have to hit them for fraud. To me, I would do it in federal court, where it's a more streamlined process. State courts, local county superior courts are backed up for years, especially now that we're post-pandemic and post all the protections. Like now there's evictions en masse and all these things going on. Go to federal court, get a few other people involved or put the word out and go after these folks. All
right. Well, that wraps up that's what Eric would do. And for anyone listening, Eric has changed banks.
So I did fuck Wells Fargo. I moved to a new bank. I am now with Bank of California. They are fantastic. A small local business bank. They greeted me and my staff by name. They email me directly. I actually have a live person I can just talk to over something. Now, I'm not saying that every time I have an issue with the bank, I'm right. But in this case, I was 1,000% right. And I'm sure that Wells Fargo losing me isn't going to put a dent in anything for them, but it makes me feel better. So having said that, and then again, I just want to say, I love those insomnia cookies.
Me too.
Goddamn cookies are so good. There's a place that opened not far from where I live called Milk Jar Cookies, right? And I thought, okay, maybe they're going to be good too. No, we're close. Okay, hashtag we love insomnia.
We do.
Hashtag law coordinator Eric loves insomnia cookies. And I want to make it clear, I promise, we are not sponsored. They're not paying us. I just want to get the word out. They are freshly baked, delicious. They have vegan options.
They arrive warm.
Yeah. They deliver them warm in the box. I mean, it's amazing. And they're great.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure they're not in every area, but I'm telling you.
No, there's only like 4 here, like around here, I think.
I might make a bunch of people feel bad for taking insomnia cookies away. But we love insomnia cookies.
We do.
So.
All right. So remember, guys, thank you for listening. And our Instagram's at the Bensama Confirm. Our Twitter and our TikTok is Bensama Confirm. Our website is eblawfirm.us. And you can email us at info@eblawfirm.us. All right. And happy Veterans Day. Hoorah.
Thank you. Hoorah.
All right.